together.
Correct.
It's not that they're pressed down, they're woven together. And that these are complex geometric designs that would have taken people weeks to map out. And there's no footprints leading up to it. There's no roads, no machinery, no evidence of any use of any kind of machinery.
Something appeared overnight in a quiet English field. Something so precise, so massive, and so mysterious that it has stunned scientists, historians, and skeptics alike. A 200-meter crop formation, etched with impossible geometry, ancient Sumerian symbols, and hidden codes only visible with advanced technology. Was it a message? A warning? Or something far more profound?
Complete circle, we're not quite sure the actual measurements at the moment. Some of the crop was led clockwise, some anti-clockwise. That was on the first one. And the second one was the even bigger one, which is about 2 months later. They were clockwise, anti-clockwise, and 4 little dots in the middle of it.
As experts race to decode its meaning, one thing is clear. This isn't just another crop circle. This could change everything we think we know about history, communication, and who or what is trying to reach us. Unlike typical crop circles that are usually round and symmetrical, this one featured multiple layers of geometry and contained distinct symbols embedded within its structure. Upon closer inspection, some of these symbols bore an uncanny resemblance to ancient iconography, specifically from the Sumerian civilization. That alone immediately set this case apart from the thousands of reported crop formations in the past. While many of those have been explained as hoaxes or artistic stunts, this particular formation quickly raised questions that weren't so easy to answer. Within hours of the formation's discovery, scientists and researchers began arriving at the site. Among the first to study the area were specialists in crop physiology and soil chemistry. They noted something strange right away. The way the crop was flattened wasn't typical. Instead of simply being pressed down by force, the stalks appeared to be woven together, lying in alternating clockwise and counterclockwise spirals. This technique isn't easily achieved, even with planning and manpower, especially not on this scale, and certainly not without leaving clear physical evidence of the effort. One farmer, whose land was affected by the formation, mentioned that earlier formations they'd seen had simple circular shapes, but this one was different. It had intricate layering and distinct inner elements, including what appeared to be small circular nodes in the center, 4 of them evenly spaced. He described the pattern as something that couldn't have been made casually or quickly. The crop itself didn't appear crushed or broken in the way you'd expect if machinery or boards were used. Instead, the plants retained structural integrity, despite being flattened into clearly defined shapes. Then came an even more unusual observation. Some of the nodes on the wheat stalks appeared to have ruptured or expanded, a phenomenon previously observed in a handful of unexplained formations. This kind of expansion is typically associated with rapid heat exposure, as though the plants were microwaved from within. Documentaries and research papers from earlier decades have described this occurrence, suggesting that it cannot be replicated by simply stomping down the plants or using mechanical tools. One of the experts who reviewed drone footage and thermal imagery from the site explained that the internal structure of the crop indicated energy-based manipulation. When plants are exposed to a short but intense heat burst, the water inside the nodes vaporizes quickly, causing a small explosion. This could explain why the nodes were blown out in certain areas without any external scorching or fire damage. Although some past cases have shown similar signs, the degree of clarity and consistency across the entire formation made this example stand out. But the intrigue didn't stop there. Linguists and historians who specialize in ancient Mesopotamian cultures were soon involved. High-resolution photos of the formation showed a symbol placed at the center of the design, an 8-pointed star enclosed within a perfect circle. This symbol has long been associated with Inanna, also known as Ishtar, a goddess from Sumerian mythology linked with the planet Venus. The discovery prompted Dr. Irving Finkel, a senior Assyriologist at the British Museum and one of the leading experts on Sumerian writing systems, to examine the formation closely. According to Dr. Finkel, the design reflected a sophisticated understanding of Sumerian symbology. Not only was the star's shape accurate, but its framing and surrounding elements also aligned with historical usage found on ancient tablets. It's important to point out that the Sumerian civilization is one of the oldest known cultures to have developed a written language, using cuneiform script inscribed on clay tablets. Their symbols were not decorative, but carried specific meanings, often related to gods, celestial bodies, or natural forces. The fact that a modern-day field formation could mirror this exact iconography with such precision has raised eyebrows among both mainstream academics and independent researchers. The sheer speed at which the formation appeared only adds to the mystery. Pilots flying over the area just hours before it was discovered reported no signs of disturbance in the field. But on their return, they witnessed a massive, perfectly formed design that hadn't been there before. Locals confirmed that the formation appeared overnight, suggesting that whatever created it did so in a very short period and without detection. Given the level of intricacy involved, many find it hard to believe that human artists could accomplish this without advanced equipment, bright lighting, and time, all of which leave traces. Yet no such evidence was found on the ground. No tire marks, no trampled borders, no tools, and no stray equipment were discovered anywhere near the formation. The implications of this discovery are already being debated. On one hand, some believe it's a compelling case of an exceptionally well-executed hoax, perhaps created by a highly organized group with advanced knowledge of both geometry and ancient symbolism. On the other hand, more open-minded researchers are entertaining alternative explanations. While most crop circles have been linked to human activity, there has always been a small percentage, maybe 1%, that defy easy categorization. This case appears to fall into that slim category. Even critics who've spent years debunking crop formations as mere pranks have expressed hesitation. One former skeptic who now studies physical anomalies in crop sites said the Wiltshire formation was one of the most difficult cases he's encountered. The consistency of the flattened crop, the lack of entry points, the woven stalks, and the use of ancient symbology all point toward something highly unusual. Whether the formation was created as an artistic challenge, a symbolic message, or by some force we don't yet fully understand, it certainly captured public attention. As the analysis continues, more questions are being raised than answered. The presence of Sumerian symbols in a 21st century English field isn't something that can be easily brushed off or ignored. If the formation does, in fact, carry meaning in one of humanity's oldest known languages, then it might be attempting to say something, though who it's from and what it's for remains unknown. This discovery has already sparked renewed interest in ancient cultures, symbolism, and the potential for messages hidden in plain sight. And while no definitive conclusions have been reached yet, one thing is clear: something extraordinary has appeared in Wiltshire, and it has left even the most experienced researchers at a loss for answers. After the initial shock of the formation's appearance and its stunning resemblance to Sumerian iconography, the story began to shift from curiosity to something deeper. As researchers continued examining the site, they started uncovering physical and scientific anomalies that added more complexity to the situation. What looked at first glance like an elaborate visual design in a field began revealing properties that were difficult to explain using conventional methods. One of the earliest scientific observations came from materials specialists investigating the wheat stalks themselves. Not only were the crops undamaged in the traditional sense, meaning they weren't crushed or broken at the base, but many of the stalks had been flattened in ways that defied simple mechanical interference. They were interwoven, almost braided, at a level of detail that would take significant time and expertise to replicate manually. Researchers noted that this wasn't something that could be done quickly, especially not overnight, and not without extensive light and mechanical aid, none of which was found or observed. A second and perhaps even more significant detail emerged when scientists collected samples from around the formation. Tiny metallic particles, referred to in materials science as spheroids, were discovered embedded in the soil around the affected area. These microscopic spheres are not commonly found in agricultural environments and are often associated with exposure to high-energy environments, such as intense heat or sudden energy surges. In previous cases involving unexplained crop formations, similar particles had been found, but never in this concentration or uniformity. The presence of these metallic elements immediately suggested that something unusual had occurred. Possibly a brief but intense burst of heat that had affected the site in a way not currently understood. These findings prompted renewed interest from academic institutions, including departments focused on atmospheric science and geology. Some of the more open-minded researchers began looking at past data for similar anomalies. Their searches turned up a handful of cases with overlapping features, particularly the presence of elevated magnetic readings and unusual physical changes in plant biology. But nothing quite matched the full complexity and multi-layered nature of this Wiltshire event. One of the more controversial approaches came from researchers working in linguistics and artificial intelligence. With the center of the formation clearly representing the eight-pointed star of Inanna, along with other apparent cuneiform-like shapes, some experts began exploring the idea that the formation might contain an actual message, not just symbols. A team of data scientists used a neural network trained on thousands of ancient Sumerian tablets, drawn from digital collections maintained by major research institutions. These databases, developed with the help of companies like Google and various museums, have provided an enormous reference set of Sumerian writings, many of which have never been fully translated. By feeding the geometric layout of the crop formation into the AI model, researchers hope to determine whether the arrangement of symbols could be interpreted as a coherent sentence or phrase in ancient Sumerian. What they found was both surprising and controversial. The AI suggested a direct transliteration of the symbols and layout into a string of Sumerian words: Enki, Nibiru, Anuna, return. When translated, this phrase roughly means Enki of Nibiru, the god's return. For many who study ancient mythology, these names are highly charged. Enki is a figure from Sumerian mythology, often described as a god of wisdom, creation, and water. Nibiru is a term that has long been debated, with interpretations ranging from a celestial body to a mythological realm. The Anuna, or Anunnaki, were said to be a group of deities who came from the heavens. For a phrase like that to appear in such a structured and accurate form, matching both ancient symbolic elements and Sumerian grammar, was enough to raise significant attention. This wasn't just a random collection of symbols. It appeared to be an actual sentence or message that used one of humanity's oldest languages to communicate. The accuracy with which the star symbol and surrounding elements aligned with known Sumerian writings only deepened the intrigue. Mathematicians were also brought in to analyze the formation's geometric structure. What they discovered added yet another layer of complexity. The layout wasn't just visually pleasing or symmetrical. It followed specific mathematical ratios that matched constants found in both modern mathematics and ancient architecture. The golden ratio, for instance, appeared repeatedly in the relationship between the central symbol and surrounding rings. This ratio, approximately 1.618, has been found in natural forms like flowers and seashells, as well as in the design of ancient monuments such as the Egyptian pyramids and Sumerian ziggurats. The use of the Sumerian base 60 number system was another surprising discovery. Our modern system of measuring time and angles, 60 seconds in a minute, 360 degrees in a circle, comes directly from this ancient mathematical tradition. Analysts found that distances and proportions within the formation repeatedly referenced base 60 principles, suggesting a deliberate connection between the crop layout and ancient Sumerian mathematics. This raised new questions. Was the formation merely mimicking ancient knowledge, or was it actually using that knowledge to encode a deeper message? The layering of meanings, visual, linguistic, and mathematical, began to convince even some skeptics that this formation was worth serious attention. Although the phrase Enki of Nibiru, the god's return, might sound speculative or mystical to some, the underlying methodology used to decode it was based on real linguistic tools, recognized historical sources, and well-documented mathematical relationships. Among the more cautious voices were those who pointed out that pattern recognition, especially when guided by expectation, can sometimes produce misleading results. Humans are naturally inclined to find meaning in symbols and to connect dots that may not be linked. However, in this case, the variety of disciplines involved, from soil chemistry and botany to linguistics and geometry, all seem to converge on the idea that this formation wasn't a simple artistic stunt, the lack of physical evidence for human activity. The depth of the embedded scientific patterns and the successful linguistic parsing all hinted at something more complex. The question remained, who or what created it, and why? Was it a deliberate human message intended to stir curiosity? A technological experiment designed to push the boundaries of what's possible in visual communication? Or something else entirely? The lack of a clear creator or claim of responsibility left that question hanging. Most hoaxers or artists who design crop formations eventually come forward, either seeking credit or offering explanation. In this case, silence. Whether one leans toward scientific explanation or something more speculative, the formation's layered structure, both physically and symbolically, has made it one of the most studied and debated crop phenomena in recent memory. The next step, many researchers agreed, would be to test the hypothesis further. If the crop circle did indeed contain a readable message in an ancient language, were there more such messages waiting to be found elsewhere? And if so, who was the intended recipient? At this stage, speculation runs alongside serious analysis, but regardless of where the final conclusions land, the Wiltshire Formation has pushed the conversation far beyond simple shapes in a field. It has reopened questions about ancient knowledge, language, and even our understanding of communication itself. The blending of archaeology, advanced AI, mathematics, and physical science in this investigation makes it one of the most interdisciplinary efforts ever applied to a crop formation, and one that may yet yield even more surprises. Even as scientific and historical experts continued their investigation into the Wiltshire Formation, not everyone in the academic or public community was quick to accept the growing evidence. Skepticism was, and continues to be, a major part of the ongoing debate. Many people, scientists included, are naturally cautious when it comes to extraordinary claims, and crop formations have long been a subject associated with hoaxes, folklore, and fringe theory. But what makes this case different is the range of evidence emerging from multiple disciplines, raising questions that go far beyond typical explanations. The usual criticism of crop formations is that they're created by pranksters with planks and rope, and indeed many past formations have been proven to be man-made, but the Wiltshire event stands out because of several factors that continue to resist such straightforward conclusions. From the complex geometry and advanced mathematical structure to the unusual physical effects on the crops themselves, The formation doesn't follow the patterns seen in known hoaxes. Even skeptics, who have dedicated years to debunking crop circle phenomena, have had difficulty explaining this one away. Researchers have conducted tests comparing the Wiltshire Formation to known man-made formations. In several trials, teams attempted to recreate similar designs using standard crop circle tools and methods. While they were able to produce visually similar patterns on a small scale, the fine details, the woven crop stalks, the precise angles, and the lack of damage to surrounding areas couldn't be replicated with the same level of accuracy. The difference became even more obvious when advanced imaging technology was applied to both examples. Thermal cameras, drone footage, and ground-level photographs consistently showed a depth of complexity in the Wiltshire Circle that couldn't be reproduced under controlled conditions. Skeptics also tend to dismiss the formation's symbolic connections as coincidence or projection. Critics argue that humans have a tendency to find patterns in randomness, especially when ancient symbols are involved. However, in this case, those patterns are not arbitrary. They align with exact historical references. The 8-pointed star found at the center of the formation, for instance, matches existing depictions of the Sumerian goddess Inanna with near-perfect proportion. The layout surrounding the star also conforms to recognized cuneiform formatting, which follows a grid-based system that was unique to Sumerian writing. Such alignment is not something that typically occurs by accident, particularly when dealing with a script that requires specialized knowledge to replicate. While public debate continued, something else happened that changed the scale of the discussion entirely. On the same night that the Wiltshire Formation appeared, reports began surfacing from across the world. In countries such as France, the United States, Brazil, and Australia, witnesses documented similar formations appearing in remote agricultural areas. Though these other formations varied in size and complexity, many shared one key trait. They included references to Sumerian symbols or geometry that could be traced back to the same cultural roots. The fact that these formations appeared within the same window of time across multiple continents raised serious logistical questions. Creating a single large crop formation overnight is already a difficult task. Creating several across different countries with consistent thematic elements and comparable complexity would require massive coordination and a level of secrecy almost impossible to maintain in today's surveillance-heavy world. No credible group or organization has come forward to claim responsibility for this worldwide pattern. This global aspect gave the phenomenon new weight. For many researchers, it moved the conversation beyond the realm of isolated hoaxes and toward the possibility of a coordinated or even synchronized event. Whether the source was human or not, the simultaneous appearance of thematically linked crop formations around the world became a crucial point of interest. If the Wiltshire Formation was meant to convey a message, it now appeared that message might not be limited to a single location or audience. Another intriguing element is the reported effect of these formations on the surrounding environment, particularly on animals. In the Wiltshire area, farmers reported unusual animal behavior in the hours leading up to and immediately after the formation appeared. Birds were seen avoiding the field entirely, flying in strange patterns overhead. Dogs and livestock exhibited signs of agitation or alertness, refusing to enter certain parts of the field. While anecdotal at first, these reports were consistent with those gathered in previous cases where crop formations defied conventional explanation. Theories about why animals respond this way vary. Some researchers suggest it might be due to electromagnetic disturbances. It's known that many animals can sense magnetic fields and use them for navigation. If the formation process did indeed involve a burst of energy, such as a magnetic or heat-based phenomenon, It's plausible that animals could detect it before humans. Sensitive magnetometers placed in the area picked up elevated readings, suggesting that something disturbed the local electromagnetic environment. But the effect wasn't limited to animals. Several people who visited the site in Wiltshire reported odd physical sensations, including tingling, warmth, and in a few cases, a sense of mild euphoria or relief from chronic pain. These experiences are subjective, of course, and vary widely from person to person. But the consistency of such accounts from different individuals, including those with no prior interest in crop circles or paranormal subjects, has prompted some medical researchers to take a closer look. Follow-up studies are currently underway, aiming to measure any changes in health indicators from people who spent extended periods within the formation. While it's far too early to draw any conclusions, these investigations are being conducted by independent labs and universities interested in the physiological effects of exposure to altered magnetic environments. Some of these studies are building on earlier research into the human body's response to natural magnetic fields, which is still a relatively young field of science. With all these factors combined, the advanced geometry, symbolic alignment, global synchronization, and unexplained environmental effects, many researchers believe the Wiltshire Formation deserves to be treated as a legitimate scientific mystery, not just a curiosity or artistic installation. It challenges long-held assumptions about what crop formations are and how they should be interpreted. It also pushes us to reconsider how messages might be communicated, especially across time, space, and language barriers. As more people visit the site and as more data is collected, the hope is that the wider scientific community will become more willing to engage with the evidence. Some voices within academia have already begun calling for more interdisciplinary collaboration, involving experts in physics, archaeology, linguistics, and even artificial intelligence. Others, however, remain cautious, fearing that association with crop circle research could damage their professional reputations. This resistance is not new. Controversial discoveries often face pushback, especially when they challenge existing models or threaten to blur the lines between established science and the unknown. Yet history has shown that some of the most important breakthroughs have come from questioning consensus and exploring unexplained phenomena with open but critical minds. What's clear is that the Wiltshire Formation has succeeded in sparking serious conversation. It has drawn in researchers from fields that don't often intersect and forced them to consider data that doesn't fit neatly into any one category. Whether it turns out to be a groundbreaking discovery or an extremely elaborate human creation, the case is shaping up to be one of the most thoroughly documented and widely discussed crop formations in recent history. The formation also invites a broader reflection on human perception, pattern recognition, and the nature of meaning itself. Whether this is a communication from an unknown intelligence or a complex signal crafted by human hands, it touches on something fundamental: our desire to understand symbols, to interpret patterns, and to connect past knowledge with present experiences. The investigation continues, but one thing is certain: the Wiltshire Formation has opened a new chapter in the conversation around unexplained phenomena, and it shows no signs of fading into obscurity. As the investigation deepened, researchers began exploring another layer of the Wiltshire Formation, one that moved beyond visible geometry and entered the domain of hidden information. Using thermal imaging cameras during night drone flights, scientists were able to detect heat signatures that were invisible to the naked eye. What they uncovered added a new dimension to the mystery. Within the formation, in addition to the clearly visible Sumerian symbols and intricate layout, there appeared to be a secondary pattern revealed only through infrared light. This hidden layer was not a random heat distribution. It formed another glyph, one that experts in Sumerian language tentatively identified as either Enlil or Ninhursag. Enlil was the god of air and authority in Sumerian mythology, while Ninhursag was a mother goddess associated with earth and fertility. These weren't arbitrary characters. Both deities have deep roots in Mesopotamian mythology and often appear in the same pantheon as Enki and the Anunnaki, figures already suggested by the overt symbols in the main crop design. What made this discovery particularly compelling was the idea of multi-spectrum communication. The formation didn't rely on being observed through ordinary means alone. It had built-in layers that required technology, like thermal imaging, to be seen and interpreted. This strongly implied intentionality. Whoever or whatever was responsible for the formation seemed to have designed it to be read across different wavelengths of light, using tools and knowledge far beyond standard agricultural understanding. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Using high-resolution drone photography, analysts from the computer science field developed algorithms to study the physical structure of the crop stalks at an individual level. They focused not only on which way the stalks were bent, but also on the precise angles of the bends. What they found was an additional level of complexity. The algorithm detected slight but consistent differences in the tilt of flattened stalks across the formation. These variations weren't noticeable to the naked eye, but they followed a repeating pattern when mapped at scale. By assigning binary values to each angle, treating shallow bends as 0 and steeper angles as 1, the researchers were able to convert the sequence into a binary code. When this binary stream was analyzed, it showed signs of structured data. In other words, the pattern wasn't random. It resembled hexadecimal data strings used in digital computing, containing repetition, symmetry, and even checksum-like elements found in machine-readable formats. If correct, this would mean the formation didn't just contain visible and infrared messages, it was also encoded physically into the plant matter itself, like a biological data storage system. The notion that flattened wheat stalks could act as a medium for transmitting digital information is unprecedented and, according to experts, well beyond the capabilities of any known crop circle hoax, especially considering that this was done overnight, without heavy machinery, and with no visible trace of human or mechanical intervention. For many in the scientific community, this multi-layered design, visible symbols, infrared glyphs, and binary encoded stalks began to push the conversation away from speculation and towards serious inquiry. Whether human or not, the creator of the Wiltshire Formation had displayed a knowledge of ancient history, digital encoding, and biological manipulation that was undeniably complex and sophisticated. Further compounding the mystery was the connection to an artifact stored in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Researchers reviewing Sumerian tablets found one in particular that bore remarkable similarities to the Wiltshire Formation. The tablet, which had been damaged and incomplete for centuries, included symbols that matched several key elements of the crop formation, including the central 8-pointed star and surrounding cuneiform shapes. What made this connection even more extraordinary was the possibility that the formation might be completing the damaged inscription. Portions of the tablet had long puzzled archaeologists due to their missing or worn-down segments. But when overlaid with the crop formation, researchers found that several missing glyphs aligned almost perfectly with the design laid out in the field. It was as if the modern formation had provided the missing pieces to a 4,000-year-old puzzle. This led to a provocative new hypothesis: that the crop formation was not only communicating using ancient language, but was, in some way, responding to an unfinished message from the distant past. The idea that two halves of a single message could be separated by millennia, with one part encoded in clay and the other in flattened crops, was difficult to comprehend. Yet, the matching symbols and structures couldn't easily be dismissed. Roger Irving Finkel, a senior curator at the British Museum and one of the world's leading experts on Sumerian writing, commented publicly that the alignment was statistically unlikely to be accidental. While he stopped short of endorsing any extraordinary conclusions, he acknowledged that the formation demands attention and presents unique parallels to early Mesopotamian inscriptions. Whether or not the formation is actually completing an ancient message, the symbolic and geometric correlation between the tablet and the design has captured global attention. The theory of a cosmic sentence, a message beginning thousands of years ago and completed in our time, has become one of the most talked about ideas among researchers, authors, and enthusiasts alike. Still, resistance from the broader scientific establishment remains. Many researchers have been reluctant to associate with the project, fearing reputational damage. Crop circles, after all, have long been associated with pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, and hoaxes. But what sets the Wiltshire case apart is not the belief in aliens or ancient gods. It's the data. Multiple independent studies have confirmed the presence of metallic particles, elevated electromagnetic readings, heat signatures invisible to the naked eye, and digitally encoded patterns in the formation. These findings may not point to a single clear conclusion, but they strongly suggest that the formation deserves serious attention from scientific institutions across multiple fields. At the same time, the phenomenon's global nature further separates it from simpler explanations. Other crop formations bearing elements of Sumerian iconography appeared within hours of the Wiltshire design, scattered across fields in Europe, South America, and Australia. These weren't exact duplicates, but they contained variations on the same themes: ancient symbols, precise geometry, and complex alignments that resisted easy explanation. The odds of such synchronization occurring naturally, or even being pulled off by a global team of artists or pranksters, are extremely low. No credible claims of responsibility have emerged. No evidence of transportation, equipment, or coordination has been found. In a digital age where nearly everything is documented, filmed, and shared, the complete silence around these formations is remarkable in itself. Animals appear to react to these formations in ways we still don't understand. Visitors report physical effects, and magnetic anomalies have been verified by satellite and ground-based sensors. Together, these patterns suggest that something is happening in these fields that goes beyond art or pranks. Whether it's a natural phenomenon we don't yet understand, a new kind of communication technology, or something even more unexpected, it is clear that the Wiltshire formation is not an isolated or trivial event. In the end, perhaps the biggest question isn't how the formation was made, or even who made it, but why? If this is a message, what is it trying to say? Are the symbols a warning, a marker, a test, or an invitation? And why use Sumerian, humanity's oldest known writing system, as the vehicle for that message? It's tempting to leap toward conclusions involving extraterrestrials or lost ancient knowledge, but whatever the answer may be, it's important that the investigation remains grounded in evidence and open inquiry. Dismissing the formation outright ignores the data. Embracing it without scrutiny risks misinterpretation. What's needed is a balance: the curiosity to explore the unknown and the discipline to follow the facts wherever they lead. The Wiltshire formation has reopened a door that many had closed. It challenges not only our assumptions about crop circles, but also our understanding of communication, history, and human potential. Whether we are looking at a message from beyond or an expression of what we can do when knowledge from the past meets technology from the present, this event marks a moment worth examining with care and attention.